the center of the screen.
Here we are. So yeah, welcome. This conversation is really for the prospective chiropractic student, somebody who's thinking of maybe one day becoming a chiropractor and is going to get plenty of insight and transparency from this conversation, because I have Terri with me today, who has been in practice for quite a while and also has seen people go through the process and been with them each step of the way, but also continues to show up for the people she takes care of. So Terri, welcome to the Pre-Chiro podcast. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you. It's fun to see you again.
Yeah, thank you. So can we just, I guess, set the stage or set the tone by you introducing yourself, a little bit about your background and your experience of these last 20 or 15 or 10 years in chiropractic, and also kind of where you're at today?
Great. Yes. So yeah, it was curious when you thought to ask me, because my pre-chiropractic experience was over 20 years ago at this point. I've been in, I'm basically retired from chiropractic. I do have a robust communication coaching, relationship teaching, coaching practice. And I do from time to time dabble, because it's hard not to do it. People love the work. And I practiced for the entirety of my 20-something years. I opened in February 16th of 1998, which I don't know if people ever forget their open date. I certainly haven't. And have been practicing and never had to do anything else. I could practice all along. Grateful. I practiced at I practiced network chiropractic the whole time. So, I'm really grateful and feel incredibly lucky to have done something that meant so much to me for all these years of my life. And that all started with a chiropractic education, which was required. In order to become a chiropractor, I needed a license. And that was pretty much my mantra going through chiropractic school. There is no other way. If I want to do this for a living, this is the thing I have to do, no matter whether I like it or do not like it. So it got me through, it was really crystal clear. So I'm in Philadelphia, and I do see people on the tables from time to time with coronavirus, and the way that you one practices network, it's a little challenging depending upon one's belief systems around that. So, so do you want me to, I should turn my emails off.
No worries. Yeah, so that's a long time to be in practice, or it's a long time ago to have gone to chiropractic school. But chiropractic hasn't changed. The profession has obviously morphed itself as years have gone on. There's always change. But can you speak to that prospective student? How do you really feel about this path after, looking back on the life that you've lived as a chiropractor? And yes, they have to go to chiropractic school, but once they get out, they get to call themselves a chiropractor and fully practice. So just be honest. How would you communicate to somebody who's really considering this path?
There's a lot of things that I would say about it. I hope that it was clear that when I went to chiropractic school, I wanted to be a chiropractor. So that drove me. And I'm grateful for the career that I had. And so I don't think I would have made another choice. I'm an Aries. I'm a little strong-headed. And so, once I made that decision, that was that for me. And so in terms of the education and the prep for education, I'll say it that way, I didn't go to college. And so I needed to get I didn't need a bachelor's degree when I went to school. I just needed a certain number of credits. And quite frankly, that was really a fun thing for me to do. I enjoyed, I worked the entirety of my life. I didn't go to college. I went from high school to working. I was 36 when I went to chiropractic school. So I was old, basically. And I'm way older now. But anyhow, the point is, that I took it seriously. I was planning to go. I live in Philadelphia, like I said, and there was a school here at the time. I was planning to go there. That school, the licensing all changed at that time, so that wasn't an option for me. So I actually did a tour of many schools. And to me, the fact that I picked the school that I went to is a miracle in a way that happened. And destined, I went across the country to go to, and I loved it here. I did not want to leave here. And I loved, I hated school when I was in it. And my memory of it, like almost from the day that I graduated, has been I loved school. Even though cognitively, I know I hated it. I remember saying it. It was so hard, and it was just hard. That's basically a lot of studying and those kinds of things. And but my memory of it is nothing but really wonderful. It's a huge accomplishment on my part. I remember when I graduated, my father said, "Oh, I didn't think you were going to do it." And I was so grateful to him for not telling me while I was in school that he thought that, because I did do it. And some of the ways that I prepped myself emotionally was because I was going to prereqs. And I was taking hard things like, chemistry and organic chemistry. And I had some amazing teachers here in Philadelphia. And the thing that got me through basically was that I don't have to know it before I go to school. Their job is to teach it to me. So it doesn't matter. I'm like, oh, I don't know science. And it's like, well, yeah, their job is to teach me anatomy. Their job is to teach me microbiology. And, they did. So emotionally, that's how I prepared. I also, again, like I said, toured schools and really picked the one that suited me. I went to Life West, and so glad I did. It was a different campus than there is now. But it was magical, and it was because of the people. And so I think that's a big consideration. It's like you're going to be around people, the same people for 4 years doing, for me, it was one of the one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, like just learn all that stuff and spit it out in tests and take, there's a lot of testing. I'm guessing that's the same.
That hasn't changed.
Right. And so I was around a lot of positive people. We had a lot of fun. We took it seriously. We didn't take it seriously. Some people surfed. Like I met lifelong friends there. And so that would be something that I would really consider. Like each school kind of has its flavor, like what it stands for, who goes there, who it attracts. And so I would say be around the people that you feel good being around, because you're going to be around them doing hard things. And they're probably going to annoy you and those kinds of things. So I was very glad to pick that school. And also you call the schools, and I guess they do an interview of you, if I'm remembering correctly. And am I allowed to be like completely honest? They would ask you, things like you would an interview. And I remember thinking, oh my God, I hope I make it in. I hope I make it in. And once I was in, I realized, if you're breathing and can sign a check, you're in. So like, you pick your school. They need the students and they need the money. And
historically, chiropractic school has been really much easier to get into than any other graduate level healthcare program. I think that they're tightening up the standards nowadays. And I really hope that they create a higher standard for the experiences that you have before you go to chiropractic school, as opposed to the academic prowess. It's more about how have you been exposed? How much have you been exposed to? How much have you experienced? Do you have an understanding of what you're even signing up for? Because that's just a really crucial piece for incoming chiropractic students. So
I think there were two things on my mind. Well, there's many, but one was you didn't need a lot of school when I went in there. So there were a lot of young people, young male-bodied people. And I was thinking, wow, how are they going to handle it when a woman comes in there with like some serious issues that she's upset about? And, I'm guessing they all did fine. Some of those people I don't know. I didn't follow their careers, but that was always a question. Do they have enough life experience here to hold someone who's scared and going through some real physical, emotional challenges? So people do come into our offices that are really challenged. And so, like you're saying, sort of maybe even after school, like going to school is a hard thing, and maybe we can talk about that, but practicing is a hard thing. I was not prepared for the level. I was older and had a lot of things under my belt, and when I opened, after a year, I was like almost done, because I never went to a chiropractor because I was sick. I always went to turn the power on. And people were coming to me because they didn't feel well. And it took me by surprise how many people weren't feeling well, for like chronically not feeling well, whether it was emotional or some kind of pain in their body. And I was just like, whoa. And they all wanted me to make them feel better. And that, I took it seriously. So I kind of got bogged down in that, and took a little bit of time, changed. I did also open, like I opened and just worked every single day. Any single minute that anyone wanted to come into my office, I was going to be there. And I had some mentors telling me, Terri, no, you gotta rein that in. And so I did, and transformed my practice, and then really loved it for a good 18, 19 years.
Wow.
As far as school goes, the one thing that I think is way worse than what I had, and it was really bad then, was the amount of debt that you're going to come out with if you don't pay for it. Sure. And at the time, I didn't think about it. It's like, why even bother trying to raise the money? But you pay so much less if you pay money rather than take out loans. And so, and they really did educate us about that. I got to give the school credit, because they were saying, this is a lot. But again, I was older than most, but I was young and I just wanted to do it, and I didn't have the money. So I was a yes, and came out with a huge debt. And I think we were thinking then that it's just like, oh my God, this is insane. How can they ask for this much compared to what they were asking for in the 1980s? And now, because I have friends who are sort of in school, I'm like, it's twice as much as when I graduated. So, I think that is something to really consider. You're going to have a lot. I mean, maybe they'll take away the debt things, hopefully, but
I mean, the reality is no matter which healthcare profession you go into, you're going to end up spending the same amount approximately. If you go to become a medical doctor or a physical therapist or an occupational therapist or a dentist or an optometrist, chiropractic is in the same ballpark in regards to how much it costs. And I'm trying to provide some financial strategies that I've learned in recent years to help students really transfer that risk mentally, because it can be a real mental stressor. It can be creating anxiety. It could be creating different bodily sensations that drive people to really feel as though that decision wasn't the right decision. But I don't think that the financial piece should really drive somebody away from chiropractic school, just because it's a reality of the world today. If it's that big of a piece, then like you can leave the country and go study elsewhere, but then you can't come back to the country. So there's definitely some logistics involved with the financial thing, and my hope is to impart a little bit of encouragement that there are ways that you can really use your student loan money and make the most out of it. But I hear you definitely.
I think I did. I just am saying, be mindful. Like, if you actually have the money, or someone personally would lend you the money, you'll end up paying back a lot less. That's all I'm saying. And I think even when I went to school, even though at the time we thought it was like insane amount of money, it was probably doable, but I just didn't really consider it, because getting the loans was very, very easy.
Yeah.
It was just an easy thing to do. And yeah, I never really considered it. And I didn't have that. I was an older, even at the tender age of 40 when I opened, or 39, whatever it was. I didn't really have that drive to have that big, high number practice. I wanted a lively practice with people that I really liked. I've always had only a cash practice. I've never taken insurance. And I'm glad for that decision. It always seemed to me the more people you have in your office, the more you have to charge because you got to pay all these other people, and so it just gets complicated. Not complicated. It just is, what kind of practice do you want to have? How many people do you want to see? What kind of impact? What are your skill sets?
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I made those kinds of decisions. I don't have any regret. I
Mm-hmm.
just have debt, and it's been a long time. However, there are ways to mitigate that debt, but that's
Mm-hmm.
not this show, I don't think.
No, no. Well, one of the ways that I'm contextualizing those skill sets is that you're a scientist, that you're a thinker, that you're an artist, that you're a teacher, and that you're an entrepreneur. And I was wondering if you could elaborate a little bit on the skill sets, the unique skill sets that you chose to develop for yourself in practice, and also as time has gone on, what you've been attracted to, and what your current passions are in regards to how you're applying these skill sets.
Um, hmm. It's an interesting thing. I've always been attracted to the science part, and not necessarily like the anatomy part. I don't know if I mean, I could definitely not pass boards right now, but I would say probably most practicing chiropractors could not pass boards, but I don't know if that's true. Um, but sort of the way like neuroplasticity works and how what we do really impacts that. And then, and just there's a way that language sounds so alluring to others, sounds so interesting to people when you're like patients, when they come in, they like to hear that, whether it's really is true or not, or even like, I critique science in and of itself, but I do like that language. I like to be able to speak that way and talk about the biochemistry and the neurology and all that stuff. Um,
Can you share just like one or two things that of like just how you see the body from through that lens that you just described, whether it be neuroplasticity or biochemistry? Like, what kind of change are we creating within somebody? Um, what are some things that you would share with somebody that came in and that you were taking care of, or that was interested in what was really going on?
Well, I think that the way that I practiced was mostly that there's a reason why the body is holding a distortion pattern, and it's not just like a random, it's usually not physical. The initial sort of distortion happens where the chemistry meets the physical in our neuropeptides, which a lot of them are stored in receptors up and down the spinal cord. And so if there's a distortion pattern that is stuck there, the body is going to recruit muscles and all that kind of stuff and be stuck in a rotation pattern or some sort of lateral bending pattern. And so that's what we're trying to interrupt. That the body it's just not this biomechanical linear machine, that the initial sort of distortion, I guess I might say, is usually has something to do with mental and emotional, either intensity things or intensity experiences or repetition. And that the body is just like a display unit. It's like your monitor of your life. And so the way that I understand what I did is I interrupted those patterns so that the brain and the body, the chemistry in the body, could recognize itself and unwind its own distortion. Like if it put the distortion in, it can take it out. And I'm not taking it out by pushing on C2 to the right. If I interrupt that sort of where the information isn't flowing and get it to flow again, the body's like, oh, I'm not in danger. I do not have to be holding this distorted pattern. And so then it just automatically unwinds. So I don't know if that was too detailed or not detailed enough or even made any kind of sense, but
It does, absolutely. You're talking about helping a person see themselves clearly, or at least a little bit more accurately see themselves, and helping that distortion pattern naturally unwind as opposed to forcing it in one direction or the other. Just getting people to listen, getting people to breathe and stretch and feel. And so what I just want to keep going with the language that you use with people, because I find there's a lot of juice there, or I think that there's a lot um, that a lot of refinement that you've developed within your own way of communicating and way of describing feelings or making observations and not being judgmental about them. And can you just
Oh, lovely words there.
Mhm.
Yeah, so, you know, I don't know necessarily what there is to say. I think towards the end of my practice, it'd be like there was a way that people come in and they ask me what's going on in their body. And so I always, towards the end, kind of had it as a race to be the one that asked that question first, you know, so that they could answer the question rather than me answer the question for them, you know, like, or why do you think it happened? Like that would be sort of like if the sooner I could ask that question of them, because that's usually what they ask me. And it's just like sort of giving people the power back to answer their own questions, to be in charge of this thing that is their physical unit that they have come on this planet to wear or use or be in, if depending if you think of that. So I think towards the end, what I was trying to do is empower people to sort of decide for themselves how their life is going to be and how they're going to feel in their body and what they needed and you know, and sort of what would make them happier. And that's not the easiest thing, I don't think, to do, especially in the beginning when someone comes in the beginning of the care of their care and they're scared or been in pain for a long time. And you know, we live in a culture that is disempowering, you know, like that says all kinds of things just randomly happen to us, and then we name these things and they're not ours. So like if someone comes in and says, I have arthritis, it's much harder to conceptualize that I have something to do with that than my knee hurts.
Mhm.
And they basically are the same words. It's just like, yeah, well, when I wake up in the morning, my knee feels pain when I flex it or extend it or whatever. That I might be able to do something about. Having arthritis is this big thing that happened to me randomly and I have no power over it. And well, that's that. Same, you know, like with depression, it's like, well, what does that even mean? Are you tired? Are you apathetic? Do you think people don't listen to you? Are you hopeless? Or what is your thing? Like depression is something I can't really do much about. It's this big cloud, but it's like, wow, you know, I really like to sleep a lot. Well,
Mhm.
maybe there's good reasons, or maybe there's good reasons for the things that happen in our body. And trying to connect people that they have something to do with the condition that they're in right now seem to be the biggest challenge. Like you have everything to do with it.
Mhm. And then
And so, go ahead.
no, just to reflect. So within these challenges that people have, they've been given a label, they've been diagnosed, and they're not taking the time to really relate to themselves. What is the biggest opportunity that you have there as a chiropractor to support somebody in that process?
I think it depends how you practice, but I think we have many ways. One is to let them know that we're there to support them, and the other is that um, that despite what the cultural narrative is about health and healing, or if you've deteriorated into a certain kind of experience, that from all my reading, this is where the science comes in, all my study and all my reading, it's like nothing is a done deal. You can literally undo anything. You know, if you have arthritis, that can get resorbed back into the bloodstream, those kinds of things. So I think basically empowering them to understand that what they hear isn't not necessarily what's true. The cultural, medical, Western, linear, mechanistic narrative isn't necessarily true. I don't believe it for a second. I have lots of experience that um, supports my hypotheses, and so that's what I think I can offer them the most.
Okay. And okay, cool. So over time, you said that you were partially retired from chiropractic practice, but yet you still find ways to support people. Can you speak a little bit about nonviolent communication and that whole body of work and how you can support people in that way, because I believe nonviolent communication has its place within the context of chiropractic education. I'm just not sure exactly how a chiropractic student would enter into the study of that, and how they could relate it to the program.
Well, yeah, I do teach, not chiropractic school, but other healing modality schools. I do teach. They often have a module in NVC. So the core of my work is NVC. I do, pull in a lot of things, including my chiropractic science background, my neurology background, eco-psychology and evolutionary psychology, those kinds of things. But NVC to me is like the deepest self-awareness work there is really out there. It doesn't really present that way when you first learn about it. It seems like it's about communications and relating well, and it is, except for that it's all about, sort of unpacking that where power lies in a relationship, and the language that we use and where it developed, and really understanding what our needs are. It's a needs-based language, so it means tracking inside for why I feel the way I do, and then what it is that I could say or do that will more likely create a condition where that need will be met in my life. And for me, I can't really set like that. Once I learned that work in terms of how we communicate and ask other people, it's sort of, that is how I see the body. Like, I remember when I was learning network care, Donald would say things like our symptoms are meant to interrupt our life. That's what they're designed to do, to stop us from what we have been doing and say, wake up. Everything you've done until now has gotten you in this condition. So pay attention, not try to get this. It's not like keeping your symptoms, but what could you do that would give you health and wellness and thrive and be in less pain or less whatever. And so I see that in the same way in nonviolent communication. It's a whole bunch of needs, and a lot of people can understand that air is a need, and in our brains we can really see that if we're breathing and thriving and then we take air away, we can watch a person within moments die. And so in our little brains, we can make the connection between air, thriving, no air, death, and call it a need. And so then if there's water, there's a longer time, and food, maybe there's a longer time, and warmth and shelter is a longer time, but we can sort of see it. These other things like compassion and meaning and purpose in life, and love and care and creativity, all these things that are actual needs, because the length of time is so long between, like, if I don't have creativity in my life, it's a long time. We can't relate it. It's years. But most of us are in a needs deficit of many different needs. And so we go from thriving to, we're not dead, but we're in that, like, we're in the minute one of no air. I don't know how many minutes you can live without air. So whatever, if you can live for 4 minutes without air, or 6, whatever it is, we're like, so we're all kind of running around in the world in some sort of big needs deficit. And some of it is there. It's hard to get clean air, but nature and compassion and relationship and partnership, there's a whole big list of these things. And so to me, part of our illness, when someone comes in and they are not well, whether it's depressed or they have knee pain, because remember, the way that I view the body, it's usually some mental, emotional component of distress that the body is holding that distortion pattern. It's these needs that we are not aware of, that we don't have. We can't really articulate them clearly. And so guiding people to understand what their needs are, what needs are being met really well inside each relationship and all their relationships and the quality of their life, and which ones they really need in life, and what are the ways that they could get them met. So that's what that work is about. So I do a lot of relationship because it shows up in relationship with other people, but I do a lot of coaching for individuals so that they can start to design the life that, they're unhappy and they don't really know why. And it's because their needs are not being met.
And it sounds like if we were having a conversation with a pre-Chiro student, we would start there. We would start with asking them to ask themselves or relate to themselves about the needs that they have, that they're looking outside of themselves by looking at more education and looking at the chiropractic education as being this path to help them get their needs met. So it's just a really interesting sort of narrative that could be created where pre-Chiro students, your goal is to clarify your needs, to check in with yourself and get clear on really how the idea of becoming a chiropractor makes you feel, and like really stick with that and spend some time with that. And then move forward from there, having recognized in yourself what your needs are and why chiropractic school might help you get your needs met. I mean, you mentioned one of our biggest needs is purpose. I think chiropractic is one of those few professions that really helps people uh, define their purpose in their own unique way and develop their ability to help people. So anyway, I just think that it's really relevant.
I agree. Can we take a little bit of a break?
Yeah,
I
of
need.
course.
Yeah,
You
I
can
didn't
go
know.
ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Or do you need to go to the bathroom, or do you want to just stop in
Yeah,
general?
well, don't put that in on. Don't put that. Don't put that. I want to go to the bathroom.
This will be edited. This will be
Oh,
edited.
okay. Okay, great. I'll be back in a minute.
Take your time.
Thank you.
It was goody. It was goody hoodie. Yeah, I appreciate you supporting being on here. Um, I'll hit you once I get off. This is wrapping up shortly. I'm talking to you right now. You didn't hear me? Yes. I can't hear you. Okay, yeah, no problem. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it, Terri.